Bonjour. That means hello in French. My name is Diana Henry, and this is my friend Karen Smith.
Hey, Ate.
Thank you, Karen. I think she greeted us in her native language, Dene Navajo. Is that right, Karen?
Not just my native language, my first language.
Your first language. So wonderful. That's great. So Karen and I are here today to co-present for you this presentation for steward training. And Karen is going to interweave the Native perspective throughout our program today. So I'm really excited for you to hear what she has to say. We're going to lead you on a journey of public engagement, unintended consequences, and then we'll end by talking about leave no trace. So before we start, I am going to take us off the screen so you're able to see the whole entire screen. So let's see if I can do that. Here we go. All right. So on this screen, you have a few definitions of public engagements. It's a two-way process involving interaction and listening with the goal of generating mutual benefit. And we'll be speaking a lot about collaborating with the public. It's enjoying the great outdoors while working in partnership with the public to solve problems together. This is Karen and me at Picture Canyon, one of the open space properties. We both became stewards for open space, including Picture Canyon, a year ago. I have learned so much from my Dene Navajo friend. Karen, again, it's an honor to co-present with you today. Do you have, thank you. Do you have something to say about Picture Canyon?
I have a lot to say about Picture Canyon, but in a nutshell, it's a sacred place. Sacred because it's all this area, not just Picture Canyon, but this whole area that we sit on, that we're presenting on today, right here, is sacred land. It's sacred to indigenous peoples who have lived here for a long time, and most recently sacred to not just my people, Navajo and Hopi, but at least 20 federally recognized American Indian nations in the state of Arizona alone. And all across this United States, there's more than 500 federally recognized Native nations. But right here, Picture Canyon is sacred lands to lots of peoples, and definitely continues to be sacred, living, breathing lands. And so it's an honor to be a steward there, to help be a caretaker and a lover of this area. As a matter of fact, I just did a hike there today, and I'm ever so grateful to be a part of this volunteering for open space.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. So let's just take a few moments to honor Native lands. And as Karen said, we need to acknowledge that these are indigenous lands. There are, she mentioned several tribes within the state of Arizona. There's something called the Intertribal Council of Arizona. And in that, there are 20 Native tribes that are members. I have this hand-sewn quilt here that was developed and produced and hand-sewn by our Hopi friend Marilyn Fredericks from petroglyphs in her village in Hopi, in Bakabi. And I have this here because you will be seeing some petroglyphs when you are in Picture Canyon, and you will be sharing these with the public and helping people to understand their beauty and their sacredness. So, unintended consequences, the importance of public education, doing what is right, avoid the embarrassment of misguided thinking. So I was a city girl I grew up in the city of Paris, France. I didn't know any of this. Though my intention has always been to do what is right, I did not know. During ranger training in Wupaki National Monument a few years back, with all the guru rangers teaching us, I was taking lots of notes. And then I spotted broken glass. And so I took out my plastic bag, I picked up the broken glass, and I climbed up to where they were all standing, and I lifted my bag of broken glass and said, "Look at what I found." And immediately I knew I had done something very wrong. Even my husband, Ranger Rick, I think he hid behind one of the rangers so that they wouldn't know it. He was related to me. I had to be taught that every glass object is a commonplace glass bottle has a story behind it. And that's about education about historic preservation. Markers on the bottom of some of these glass pieces can provide information for archaeologists, such as where the glass was made and how old it is. Moving the glass can take away important historic and cultural information. So education, many like myself in this first example with the glass at Wupaki, they don't know and they may not be informed. Having the education provides opportunities to learn and understand the reasons why. You as stewards will help them with that. So volunteering for the National Park Service, I have learned that any glass, tin, or object more than 50 years old is considered to be an artifact. It therefore needs to be left in place. Taking things that don't belong to us. Historically, pottery was looted to sell to museums. Even now, visitors are still putting pieces in their pockets and taking them away. We need education that these belong to those who went before us. Their relatives still live here. They ask that these be honored and left for Mother Earth. Archaeologists also say that taking these, like the glass, is like tearing the pages out of a book. They tell the story of who, what, when, and where. Natives refer to these as ancestral sites, which many continue to honor with ceremonies. These are not ruins, and they are not abandoned. So Karen, do you want to add something about this?
Yeah, I think that sacred sites are living, breathing homelands. They are, as you said, not ruins, but they are sacred sites. They've been sacred since the peoples who live there, and they continue to be. And it's our job to honor them and to leave them where they are and to observe them and to just let them be. They don't belong to us. That's what my grandmother used to say. Where I grew up, there was lots of pottery shards on the grounds, and as a little girl, I'd see those pieces and I want to grab them up, and she'd always remind me, those don't belong to us. We can look at them, but they don't belong to us. And it was hard to understand, but today I can hear her voice and know that, yeah, they don't belong to us, but they belong to the earth lying there, and we can observe them and appreciate their beauty and know without a doubt that other humans, living, breathing humans, have their ceremonies, they love, they have their children, they raised their children, they had homes, they had grandparents, aunties and uncles, and the whole kinship was there living. And the ancestry continues to be there. Their spirits are there. And so I think it's very, very important to just honor that, instead of a relic, like the way US history books want us to see, like it's a past thing. or museums would want us to see something. They're not relics. These are living, breathing pieces, artifacts of lives that have lived there and continue to live there in spirit. That is my belief.
Yes, and as stewards, those are the kinds of connections that you'll be able to share. Karen, you also shared an experience recently that you had at a gem show. Did you want to share that now?
That was just this past year in February at the Tucson Gem Rock and Mineral Show. As my son and I were walking through the show one day, we walked into a particular show where there was this man that had, there was not only did he have rock and minerals, but he also had some artifacts behind a glass partition for people to look at. And he was, I guess, rearranging them for the show and telling his workers that these pieces, and they were pottery shards in a case. He was I overheard him talking to his workers that they need to be protected, that nobody walking by could steal them or put their hands there to touch them. And when I heard him say the word that he didn't want them stolen, I stopped in my tracks and I just turned on him and I said, you know what? They are stolen. And he looked at me like, who are you? and he says, no, they're not. They're from my property. They're not stolen. I said, yes, they are. They are stolen. And but he didn't get it. He said, that's my property. I bought my property, and whatever else he said. But I just walked away, because what I mean is that you can buy a piece of land and it can have this kind of history on it, but it doesn't belong to the person who bought the land. It belongs to the earth. And here he was showing it, and they had price tags. He had the price tags listed for them. So in the way I think, and in my way of thinking, and I know that in the way of lots of indigenous people would think, that this is dishonor, a continuing dishonoring of the indigenous peoples who have lived on these lands and continue to live on these lands.
Yeah. Yeah, I know locally in Flagstaff, the Museum of Northern Arizona has worked really hard with the natives to have even my own country of France return artifacts to the people, to the native people that don't belong to them. So, yep, this is an ongoing issue. And as stewards for open space, we can help people really honor what's behind what they see. So I think many of you already know this, but we need to help people understand that these petroglyphs are very fragile, that walking on them can cause harm, touching them, which with hands which contain natural body oils can also destroy. And tracing them is also not okay. You should only, we say, talk about, use the best sensory tools to use are your eyes only, or a camera. And you'll see in Picture Canyon, and some of you have even been part of this project, where some little fencing, and it's really just a little concrete post with a little barrier. You know, it's not going to stop people from going on, but it's to indicate, you know, please stay on the trail. So we hope that you'll be able to let them know. And then graffiti. We see a lot of graffiti, and we have the opportunity to have a wonderful person as a steward, Dr. Robert Marks and his wife. He's a chief scientist at Roussel Cyber Services. they gave permission to share this research graph. And basically what it shows is that graffiti attracts more graffiti. More graffiti you have, there's exponential growth. Therefore, it's important to catch graffiti and report it before more is added, which will be one of your chores as a steward, is to be able to report it on the app. And you're going to learn how to do that. So really important. And, you know, rock art is artistically compelling and full of meaning. It's fragile, it's irreplaceable, it's a visual heritage, which actually has worldwide significance and also contemporary relevance for many indigenous people. It's still part of their living culture. If we neglect, destroy, or disrespect rock art, we devalue even our own future. So over time, Dr. Robert Marks, he's worked on erasing some of these, and you'll see the triangle. He mentioned to me that, you know, they've tried several times to get rid of it, but they just can't. Although the cross that I also put a square around there in yellow, that he was able to get rid of it. So we ask ourselves, is it best to just keep visitors out? Or is it possible to educate? And I believe it is. And we're hopeful that your presence as stewards will be one answer to help protect and preserve. So Karen, do you have something to add to that?
I believe that along the same lines as pottery shards on the ground in these sacred areas, this type of art on the rocks is the same. And you talked about how they can be damaged over, you know, by human touch or graffiti on the rocks, and it's a dishonoring for the people and their lives, and the story that this art is intending to tell and share for the generations to come. In my hiking today, I believe that I'm not 100% positive. I know that there had the number of people who have been through Picture Canyon has increased due to this virus that we're experiencing, and it seems like there may be more graffiti that has happened in this time frame. I wasn't 100% sure, but it just seems like some of those faces of those rocks may have some more graffiti than was there, and it's sad to see that. So yeah, it definitely it seems like the graph you shared about, you know, graffiti attracts more graffiti. It seems like, especially with this time.
Oh, that makes me so sad to hear that, Karen, again. And you know, we're really working to figure out what to do about it, and we invite you as stewards to come up with ideas. You know, we are looking at placing some cameras that to maybe help monitor. Someone had the idea of, well, maybe we should put a rock next to there, you know, off the trail, and say, this is, if you want to draw here, make your artwork here, but please leave these old ancient artwork alone. We haven't figured it out yet, so we are open to suggestions. So let's move on to wildlife, etiquette and safety. One of my mentors, Rick Miller, who worked for the USGS, taught me that open spaces are not zoos. You want to respect the wildlife, keep your distance, limit your stay, and certainly don't feed the wildlife. You want to hike and watch very quietly. Human noises can be a sound pollutant. This morning, I had a chance to do some hiking with my husband, and there was no one. We were lucky to be in a place where there was no one for a couple of hours, and it was just amazing. The sounds that we heard naturally from the wildlife and the birds and the insects and the wind and the leaves. Also move slowly. Or when you spot a bird, you know, instead of pointing and disturbing the bird, you might just quietly tell your partner, it's over there at 12 o'clock. And you want to respect the wildlife habitat. Stay on the trails. You'll see at Picture Canyon, we have a lot of social trails, and we try with big logs to show people which way to go to stay on the trail. And you'll also have that opportunity to help with that. Want to use the restrooms when there are some, and leave no trace. So when you spot wildlife in its natural habitat, don't approach it. Keep your distance. Let it be. And moving on to dogs on a leash. I know many people think of taking their dogs out to run. There are dog parks, and that's where to take them. But in these parks, these open spaces, you have to keep your dog on the leash. And when you see people who are not, well, we're going to talk about a leave no trace technique, but you want to help them understand that their dogs can scare wild animals. And right now it's springtime here, and a lot of them are having their babies. They also can scare humans, and some people are allergic to dogs. And finally, as Karen mentioned, the places like Picture Canyon, which have been refurbished to have their natural riparian flora, if you let the dogs run, they'll tromp on the natural flora and the restoration areas. So when a dog tromps on it, it limits the natural growth. And those plastic bags with dog poop, what is happening? I don't know if any of you have noticed that, but it's a thing now. Though considered about cleaning up after their pets, owners have to also pick up after their dogs. They have to know that by leaving plastic bags filled with poop on the trail, they're making their dog's poop somebody else's problem. Again, it can alert prey species to the existence of a potential predator, thereby putting pressure on possibly vulnerable species. So you want to help them to understand they are responsible for their dog and everything it produces. They have to pick up the dog poop bag. Don't leave it there. Don't think you're going to pick it up on the way back. Just carry it with you. There is no poop patrol. So we have some signs, and we've been discussing a lot at Picture Canyon about, you know, how to help people follow some of the important information for safety and courtesy. And one of them is this trail courtesy sign that you've seen, many of you. Signs are a good way to share information. However, they don't always tell the whole story. This yellow triangle one tells us that bikers have to yield to pedestrians because bikers or hikers have priority over them. However, it's not always helpful in 2020 when bikers are speeding down the hills. Most of the time, a hiker will want and need to give way and step aside to let the biker go through. I wrote an article about this in the Arizona Daily Sun last year in the Ask a Ranger column. And I received feedback from many different people. So this is another sign that's a little better that I found in Sedona through the Forest Service that actually says hikers step right for the riders and bikers slow down when passing. So that's better. However, it also needs to indicate for hikers, you need to announce to others in your hiking group, biker coming, step to the right. Karen has saved me several times by doing that because I don't hear very well. I'm deaf in one ear. And so I don't hear them approaching. And thank goodness Karen can hear them and tells me, need to move over to the right. And so bikers, announce your approach and also indicate how many are in your group. So signs don't always tell the whole story. There's a new sign in Sedona, which is way better. And it talks about controlling your speed, being aware of hiking and biking coming both directions, and sharing the trail. It even has definitions for yielding, which means slow down, establish communication, be prepared to stop, and pass in a safe and friendly manner. Karen, do you have any experience you would like to add on this?
Sure, I mean, we've had our own experiences while hiking on various trails where um, we've had courteous bikers who say, you know, two more in our group, or they ring a bell, or we've had near misses with bike riders where we didn't hear them. I had an experience the other day on Campbell Mesa hiking with my friend. Um, a biker nearly hit her, and had it not been for her dog to move in the trail, the biker would have like continued on. And it really scared her. She was really upset and said to the biker, you know what, it's really important that you announce that you're coming. And the biker said, I thought you saw me because you stopped. And she didn't stop because of the biker. She stopped to give her dogs water. So yeah, so there's a lot of assuming between parties, and I think, like you were just alluding to, that it's important to just have the common decencies of communication, to be, because everybody has the right to be on those trails, but I think um, in a attitude of kindness and politeness is good.
Yeah, that's right. Many of you know our dear friend Jack Welsh, and he's been working on this issue for a long time as he leads many hikes throughout the city of Flagstaff. So we're still working on this, but hopefully with helping people understand both sides, it will make a difference. So finally, leave no trace. This is a concept I think many of you have already heard of. It's a program which provides guidance to enjoy the natural world in a sustainable way that avoids human-created impacts. And, you know, I did not know this, but just as plastic bags and plastic bottles, Mylar balloons have to be taken out, so do fruit peels. An orange peel can take up to 6 months to decompose. Banana peel and apple core could take up to 2 years. And though they do decompose more quickly than the plastic, they are not native to most natural environments and are not suitable for wildlife. So there's this concept that Leave No Trace has called authority of the resource, or ART. And it really emphasizes that we don't want to rely on humans to be the authority, but rather that the earth is the authority. While nature, it has its own authority. It has her own rules, operates in certain ways, and has certain laws. There are consequences when we violate that order. And we can certainly see that right now with coronavirus results, with people not being outside and no airplanes and less cars, how much clearer the air is, and the animals are coming back and are communicating more now. So these areas are among the few places on Earth where we have agreed to allow nature, for the most part, to operate on her own terms. And research shows that if you want desirable behavior, it's more likely to occur if people understand how their actions affect the way nature operates. Humans are not the authority. The earth is the authority. And so we want to transfer authority from rules and regulations. So, you know, because I said so, to the authority of the resource. And the resource includes the plants, the animals, the water, the artifacts, the ancestral sites, and the experience. So Karen, do you have anything to add about this?
Yeah, just like you said, the the earth is the authority. Mother Nature is the authority. She is the one that we're putting our feet on, and the animals that live out there, all the wingeds and the four-legged that are out there making their homes, hunting for their food, making their nests for their babies. Um, I think they are the authority. That is their home, and we are in it. And I think it's good to observe their authority, so that generations after us can continue to appreciate this natural beauty, um, that we live on.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. You often talk about the breath of the earth, that you could hear the earth breathing when you really listen and protect. So just to recap, the authority, leave no trace, has 7 points. One, it's defined as the power to influence or command thought. Nature or the resource has its own authority. Responsible recreation is more likely to occur if people understand their actions impact natural resources. Not because it's a law, but because their actions impact natural resources. There's often a tendency to focus on the authority of the agency, the Park Service or open space stewards when dealing with the impacts. However, ultimately, people end up thinking about laws and rules and regulations rather than focusing on the authority inherent in nature. So the authority of the resource technique, or ART, attempts to offset this tendency. It transfers the authority from rules and regulations to the authority of resource. As we said, plants, animals, water, etc. And so we need to practice as stewards as to how to present these kinds of thoughts to the people that visit from a perspective of the authority of the resource versus because it's the rules. The human is not the authority, the earth is. So to borrow from the Grand Canyon Conservancy, together let's inspire, educate, and protect. Karen, do you want to add your perspective to this?
Yeah, I think as humans, it's our duty to look after our Mother Earth. She's a living, breathing entity. She provides us sustenance and life and beauty all around us every day. And, as stewards, we get to be caretakers in that. And I feel an honor to be part of Open Space Stewards and to help look after my mother, our mother, this home, this sacred home to us all.
Beautifully said, Karen. So thank you, each of you, for participating in this training to become a steward of open spaces. Thank you, Karen, for co-teaching with me and for all you have taught me. And let me see if I can put us back on so we can end with, if I know how to do this. Maybe I can't. Let's see. Trying to find how to put us both back on the screen. Probably have to do this. Let's see. Oops. Okay, so let's see. Maybe here we go. Got it. There we are. So yeah, and let me just go to here so you can see the big slide. And oh yes, here we go. Aha. Yes. So here's a picture that was taken of the whole group last year, our first steward program training. Of course, at that point, we were still able to all gather together. You might recognize some of these people, but you want to be able to take care, be safe, and we hope to see you on the trails. We're so glad that you are with us on this. Karen, any few words to say at this point?
Uh, I just feel honored to be a open space steward and to help look after our natural treasures and walk with the ancestors every day. It's a spiritual experience to be able to do that every day, to put my feet on the earth. And it's probably that same way for many of you. That's why you choose to be a steward. So I'm just grateful to participate and be part of this. It's a beautiful way to be a part of and be of service.
Well, thank you, Karen. We were going to end here, but I thought we would add one more slide. And this is really brief because there'll be much more on this. There'll actually be a whole presentation on COVID since this is a reality right now. But just to remind you that, to make sure it's safe to walk and bicycle throughout the open space, to have physical distancing and reducing clutter of foot traffic. So be sure you go out safely and responsibly by following CDC guidance. You can go on their website, and a couple of things we all know: stay at least 6 feet from other people, avoid gathering in groups, and whenever you need to use cloth face coverings, especially to help people who may have the virus and don't know it from transmitting it to others. So, we know, of course, if you're walking alone or with a family member, and social distancing is not necessary. However, when others are sharing the trail, you want to make sure it's safe for everyone. So, okay, this is it. Karen, thank you so much for joining me on this. It's made this time very, very special for me. So thank you, everybody. Karen?
Likewise.
Okay, so bye-bye, everybody. And we will see you on the trail. And I just need to find how to stop this recording. I don't know how to do that. Let's see.